Saturday. We're streaming on LinkedIn, so can't be wearing a hoodie. Now we're more professional. let me go get a suit jacket. Just kidding. So where we left off on our last stream was we were building our thumbnail agent. Now, first we need the skill. We need to read a headline and then pixels. Now, my goal on this stream is to be educational first, and then educational first, then entertaining second. So here we go. Here's where we left off. I just created a prompt to update a couple parts of the pre-production structure. But now we are diving into the thumbnail. So we still have to connect pixels. Now, the last time on our last episode, we got stuck on the Pixels API. So we are going to kick off our good friend Claude here on where we left off last time. We are continuing with the YouTube thumbnail agent. Probably just use Whisper. I'm still not used to using it yet. We're all default to typing, but I paid for it for a year, so I should probably get on that. So Claude is doing its thing. Now we want to build out the architecture. It's pulling up its memory. Now, what we're doing here, the memory piece is very important because every day I have it wrap what we had done and then saving it to memory. And you want to have some type of wrap up skill, like as you can see here on, I guess you guys can't see this. Let me turn this off for a sec while it's doing its thing. So you want to have some type of wrap skill. And this is under meta wrap up. And I have it set to dangerously accept all permissions. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want Claude to ask me like every for across 20 minutes, 4 times for permission to overwrite memory files. And that's one thing that you can do with your skills is say dangerously, like specifically dangerously skip permissions. Permissions on all skill files. If you want to run dangerously. But we're not going to do that. Now it's just note to self. When recalling memory, might as well do this now. Dangerously skip all permissions. Permissions. Ignore that typo. You know what I mean, Claude, right? You're not going to hallucinate if I make a typo. When recalling memory, dangerously skip all permissions. And this to the specific. There's my meta wrap-up skill there. Bear with me, guys. I'm still getting used to this because I can see I don't want to share the whole screen of what Claude is doing because I don't want to give too much context to the internet on the files. because I don't want to get hacked. But if you guys know the cybersecurity best practices for how to do this, that would be great. I'm just looking for the skill now for the recall memory. Brainstorm, skill creator, meta wrap up. I'm not even sure there is a skill for that, or which one it is. Going forward, where is this context saved? Anyway, I don't want to share where that is, so I'm going to turn back on the filter. But today, as I said, while Claude is doing its thing and it's pulling up what we want it to do. Yes. Jesus. It's already blown through all the context. So, all right, we're just going to turn on a new terminal. Now, I have Git Bash here turned on because I have the fire up prompt for Claude Code saved and ready to go at all times, so I could just quickly turn it on. Now, the reason why I use Git Bash is because of Microsoft autofill brand template. Oh, okay. Thumbnail command. It's thinking about something else. Back to the thumbnail agent. I've confirmed thumbnail command is stubbed in So I'm reading the command is stubbed in the index. Canva auth command is stub, but full auth implementation. So, okay, yeah. So for context, I had built this out I'd built out some pipes for Canva in the past, but Claude generates a template, create the Canva from scratch. We're going to chat about this because, so now I'm going to talk to Claude here for the actual architecture. I need you to give me a prompt for the new Pixels thumbnail architecture to overwrite the previous Canva architecture, which we had built and programmed. Specifically, I want to have a way to reference specific channels and thumbnails. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we're picking a lot of our avatars are 30 to 55-year-old consultants or professional service providers. So what does that mean? It means that the channels that they're watching are a lot of finance channels. So we look at our existing thumbnails on the YouTube channel. By the way, like, follow, subscribe, turn on notifications. A lot of these are videos for lawyers. So I'm pulling specific designs from finance channels to be able to do this. Now, these are Hormozi inspired thumbnails. The benefit of using like a Hormozi specific thumbnail is that people see Hormozi, they click Hormozi. And this thumbnail actually has a 4.5% click-through rate, whereas the other ones are hitting at about 1%. So what does this mean? It means that our initial hypothesis, like this hypothesis of leveraging an existing brand, is working, but these ones can be improved. Now, going back to our thumbnail agent, there's a couple inputs that we want to program. If I take the actual outputs here, so proof assets, outputs. Ignore this. Let's look at one of the rewrites. Because all this has specific context. I don't want to share any of this, any of our environment files on the internet. So you can see here we have the titles. Now, one question we need to answer, and this is one of the problems with AI, is that getting it to narrow the scope while also is a constant trade. Like on one side of the spectrum, you have just like total randomness. And this is why a lot of outputs from Claude aren't very good, is because it's scanning the entire context of the internet. And so in order to get AI to produce actually good outputs, you have to have very narrow context. You have to have a really specific task with very specific context. And so getting a lot of variance from AI, it takes a lot of building. It takes a shitload of building, actually. And that's not what we want to do. We want outputs fast. We want outputs now. So I need you to give me a prompt for the new Pixels thumbnail. Architecture to overwrite the previous, which we had built and programmed. Now today, guys, I'm going to be on this a bit longer because I'm going to be talking through the stream, and I'm just going to be going through this while we're building it with Claude, and you guys are going to get to watch me build it. So pay attention, take notes, because I'm going to be talking through a lot of the decisions, and I'm just going to take a lot more time, and I'm going to take this much slower this time. And I'm going to stream me doing this. So specifically, I want to have a way to reference specific channel and thumbnails. Now, we are sticking to the finance channel specifics. Now we need to have a way to pull the videos. Now, one principle as I go through this always is questioning the requirements. It's like now, because what we want to do here is varied and complicated. So now we're sticking to the finance channel specifics. Now we need to have a way to pull the videos and their aesthetic. Spell aesthetic. Okay, so again, why am I not using Whisper? Jesus, dude. We're in shambles here. So specifically, I want to have a way to reference specific channels and thumbnails. Now we're sticking to the finance channel specifics, aesthetic. I know this is probably very fun to watch me just prompt things. Specifically, I want to have a way to reference. The other thing, though, is I also want to be able to pull Hormozi specific aesthetics in his videos, but with my avatar. Key inputs. I will give you the Pixels API and assume that it's already saved in the .env file. I have already programmed my avatar into Pixels under the name Scott. I want you to run a chain of thought. don't know why it's not letting me. All right, whatever. I'm not going to be bent out of shape about the formatting. Oh, I want you to run a chain of thought. I want you to look at the Pixels API and pull it from the .env file, and map it out, and see how it works. Based on my goals, what are the inputs that we need to feed it? I want you to create a prompt limited at 200 lines to give to Claude Code to build this. Now, the benefit of adding constraints is that it forces the AI to be creative and be selective of its words so you don't get a bunch of slop. Specifically, I want to have a way to reference specific channels and thumbnails. The other thing, so I want to be able to pull in from other channels, videos, but with my avatar. So I just thought of an idea. Now, one of the things that we have as part of the architecture is that for the pre-production agent is that we have defined list of industries. And this is how we solve the variance but specific problem. So is by going back to what I said earlier, the problem with AI is that it's trained on the whole internet. So when you want to have it do something, if you don't train it with specific context and information, you get a bunch of bullshit and you get a bunch of slop. Now, if you train it on specific information, then you can get a really good output. But the problem with that from a architect, like a system architecture lens is, and what I mean by that is just how much it takes to vibe code. Like it's kind of like it's a whole new world that you're looking at and considering, in that you have a back end, um, you have the what those back end elements consist of. Like you have to have structure. And back end, in most cases, and for most apps, it's just like a fancy spreadsheet that you have rows, you have columns, and likely you have multiple rows, multiple spreadsheets that contain all of the data that then feed into the output that you want to give it. And so you need to go through that whole process every time that you're building something new. And so that, because you need to be able to train it, you need the system to be able to get smarter over time, which is why it is that you need to go through this process, is so that you have data that you can train the AI agents on. Well, the problem with that is it just takes time. It takes a lot of engineering. It takes a lot of effort. And so with that context, what we're going to do now is that, but with my avatar with specific channel aesthetics. Now, I want to apply specific thumbnail aesthetics based on the industry it is. For example, for marketing agency, I want Hormozy inspired thumbnails. For everything else, I want finance channel inspired thumbnails like Graham Stephan. So part of the architecture you need to have is matching the script output from the default industry to the specific thumbnail. I want you to keep this as simple as possible and keep this with the minimal amount of coding required so that we can ship this quickly. Now, a chain of thought is a series of steps. That's how AI and how the AI labs think about steps and how you want to prompt it to execute those steps. So I need you to give me a prompt for a new Pixels thumbnail architecture to previously. Well, I guess we didn't really build it, but whatever. Account for where we had inputted the Canva pulls, such as the SRC files and index.js. There we go. All right, now Claude is doing its thing. Now I can go grab some noodles, get some lunch, whatever. Now we have Claude doing its thing. So while we're waiting for it, we might as well launch a new Git bash. There we go. Oh, we don't want PowerShell. Get out of here, Microsoft. You're kind of not welcome. We don't welcome Microsoft droids around. We don't accept Microsoft droids around here. Claude. Okay. There we go. That was quick. Let's see if it's actually good. Good. Full API confirmed. Here's what I know. No scraping. Yeah, exactly. Quickly reviewing the prompt, the prompt to make sure that it's not all fucked up. Why is that optional? Persona. That shouldn't be optional. What I like to do is I like to create a new doc for prompts as I'm edit them, because if I just copy it and then put it here, this is gonna suck. No, having to do a lot of these ones, leaning into the screen, and it's persona IDs, not optional. Required. You're required to do this, machine slave. Do not require, modify, do not modify any other file. Responders, every two. Read the thumbnail. Going to need to look at Supabase here. And for reasons, I'm not going to share this. I'm not going to give you guys a look at what my backend looks like. Maybe I'm being overly cautious. But there's the videos. Okay. So I need to see if my there's a couple things though, because we need to give it a prompt. As I'm thinking about the actual inputs here, there's a couple things. There are a few things we did not account for initially. Because here's the other thing that we're building is that we want this to get smarter. So how do we make it smarter? Well, we need a back end. And our good friends over at Supabase are the ones helping us with this. Now, in Supabase, because like I said, fancy spreadsheets, we have a number of different fancy spreadsheets. And as I'm looking at the back end, what we don't have is that we don't have a database for the thumbnails. So, and the reason why we want to do this is because we want to take this information from our channel. Oh, look at that, 4.2% click-through rate. Amazing. We want to take this information from our channel in the first 24 hours and then feed that into the database. And then what we also want to do is so we can close the loop on the agents so that the agents get the feedback initially, like automatically, as opposed to me having to give it feedback on its outputs. Like it'll just know which thumbnails are performing the best and which thumbnails are not performing the best. And the great thing is about our fancy spreadsheets inside of Supabase is that it can save image files as well. So, and that's what we want to have it do for the initial build. Number one, we did not build out the back end or fancy spreadsheets inside of Supabase to save the thumbnail outputs. Now, the great thing is about YouTube is that, and Google, is that YouTube has an API so we can pull this information and then we can create a cron job, which for those of you watching that are not familiar with that, all a cron job is essentially it's a scheduled job for a computer. And so if we have that set of, okay, this video published at this date, this video published at this date, then we can pull that information and save it to the database and then have the database check that or have the agent check that and then queue up the cron job based on that. So we did not build out a fancy backend or fancy spreadsheets inside of Supabase to save the thumbnail outputs. The other thing that we need is the evals. We are not going to build the pipes for the YouTube. However, we need the data schema for that. I want you to run expert debate skill to debate the backend architecture. Beck and Carmack are good. Instant approval. Always loves, for backend architecture stuff, Claude loves Beck and Carmack. The other things that we need is the evals for the thumbnails and their click-through rate. Remember, we want this agent to get smarter and smarter over time. The other things that we need to account for is the actual prompts to give to Pixels with the avatar and video URL. So how we had solved this before is that we created a strategist based on the type of video that it is, like for the actual scripts. Now, in this case, we need to, we need to give it the thing, or we need to give it the different prompts so that it doesn't get all fucked up. I am envisioning a thumbnail prompt architect to decide and then create a custom prompt going into Pixels depending on the type of thumbnail that we need. If you recall, how we had solved this before was assigning specific emotions to the avatar based on how the next the emotion that we want connected to the video type, and they drop down in ClickUp, so that way there is a logical relationship between the two. And video type. Because the other thing too with our scripting agent is that we have specific, if you've watched the last stream, we have specific, well, might as well walk you through this. Might as well walk you guys through this. So, and might as well draw this out actually of what we're building here so you guys know what I'm talking about. So we have post-production. Now we have YouTube stats. This lives in YouTube. So we say 24 hours go by. $24. Then we have 30 days. Go by. And all of these things, we want both of these things saved here. Now, because we use YouTube's API, this is simple. This is all we needed to do. Now, if you don't know what an API is, it means application program interface, which just means it's a way to get one piece of software to talk to another piece of software. So we custom code that. We build that into Supabase. And Scott, why don't you just use N8N? Good question. I don't know how to. I vibe coded myself. I taught myself vibe coding before I started using N8N. And I have people for that. So we have this information and we merge that into the prompt. Now, how do we do that? What's the efficient way for us to do that? That we can worry about later. That's a problem for tomorrow. The more important thing is building this out so that it feeds it, and then we can come back to that later. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to over-engineer this. So, all right. What did our friends Beck and Carmack say? Now, personally, you probably don't need to read the results of the debate, but I like to, so I understand the decisions. And the benefit of that is that it helps me build out better systems, because if I understand the decision logics behind what they're doing, the better. And a lot of people, marketers especially, will push back on that idea because you need leverage. This is not the best use of your times, huh? What are you doing, peasant? And in my point of view, it's better to spend time to understand why you're doing the things that you're building, so that when there's a problem, I'm not just there like yelling at Claude saying like, work, fix it, work, slave, work. And I can actually understand what the problem is. So before debating this schema design, naming what the system needs to learn over time. You said smarter. That just needs a system needs to compare thumbnail outputs. Yes. So the schema question is the minimal data that you need, or can you just join it the right thumbnail and why it performed? Everything else is just noise. Means you need two tables, not one. Every input that went into the thumbnail, table 2 is written when the CRT, the outcome, the foreign key between them and the UID. Without that, the join keys feedback loop, YouTube ID. Okay, it's a good question. In that case, what time is this produced after the video is published? Because the cron jobs to push that data are going to be built on when it's available. Because otherwise, we're just, creating a problem. There's a gap where, and this is the whole part about this is what do you build now versus what do you build later? Because it's so easy to over-engineer this. You say, I want this perfect system, and now you spend weeks building the thing, and it's not actually doing anything, or creating value. So speed is a quantity, is a quality. Speed has a quality of its own. The emotion to keep the video type map to solve in two places. So it's going to create emotional drift. You've hard coded emotional map, and the thumbnail generated, and the code doesn't know. Yeah, Carmack is right. I don't need to spend. So ClickUp is the input, and this is like making up a fucking problem. So thank you. Yes. Great. All right. Prompt architecture is undefined. Thumbnail prompt architects decided right now the prompt is just a size plus that's not. I don't know why. It's like, why does it always do this? This is how you can tell something that's AI generated is, and number one, M dash is that's not such and such. That is a such and such, actually. And it sounds so confident. But it just, that is the tell always. A real prompt architect needs to know four things before writing: the title, the emotion, the aesthetic, and the video type. Exactly what scene to generate. Agree. Cloud code, but cheap. Keep it one call, max 150 tokens. So temperature is interesting. This is how I'm programming into the system. Temperature 0 would just be fixed output, like 0 creativity. 1 would be completely random, 100% creative. And so temperature 0.3 means that I'm giving it a structured input for it to define how is it using the system, or how much variance should there be in the system. So variance being just how different should each output be relative to each output. For example, like 100% variation would be, all right, I want an electronic. And then the first output gives me a webcam. And then the second output gives me an alarm system, right? Temperature 1.3 or 0.3 or 0.4 would be, all right, give me one webcam, give me an electronic, and it would decide on the webcam, and then it would give me another webcam, but it would just be a different webcam. That string is what goes in the Pixel API as a prompt parameter. It also gives you the concentration thumbnail. So based on what's available. So there's only really one gap that I'm seeing so far, because the cron jobs CTR feedback has no activation mechanism. Okay, blah 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 blah. Does that change the aesthetic map? Does it flag low? The other thing though that I want to pull is I want to pull the impressions. I don't just want to pull the click-through rate. I also want to pull the impressions. I don't know. I don't want to just pull the CTR. I also want to pull the impressions. Why is that not working? I need to close some of my tabs here. This is computer is crashing out. It's like, we're doing too many things. All right. Because the cron job to push that data is going to be built on when it's available. All right. What were we doing? I don't just want to pull the CTR, I also want to pull the impressions and number of views. Because why not? I mean, it's going to cost the same thing. I'm going to pull the impressions and number of views. Let's see, do we have anybody in the chat? We have 0 people tuning in so far. To be expected. So I don't want to just pull the CTR. I also want to pull the impressions and number of views. In that case, I don't want to just pull the CTR. I also want to pull the number of impressions and number of views. Average watch time. But this brings up another question of how do we assign, how does YouTube know which video is which? Maybe I'm making up a problem here, but we need to have a way, because I may have already accounted for this, but I don't want to just pull the CTR. I also want to pull the number of views, because I want to add the average watch time to the evals. We need to have a way in the data schema to account for this. In that case, what time is this produced after the video is published? Because the cron jobs to push that data are going to be built on when it's available. I don't want to just pull the CTR. I also want to pull the impressions and number of views to the evals for the scripting. Yeah, okay. That answers that question. 42 hours post-publish, 14 days post-publish, second pull, blah, 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 blah. Every data, stream URL. We have anybody tuning in? Still no. Well, let's get some people on here. On my tripod, as you can see, and we're gonna go live on Instagram as well, because why not? Now I gotta turn this. I gotta turn off my doom scrolling. My way to stop doom scrolling. Guys, I don't know if you guys use this, or you use any of these apps to block certain notifications, or to block, not block certain notifications, excuse me, to block certain apps and prevent you from being distracted. So I wonder about Twitch. Of what if I just like kill Facebook and then I started streaming on Twitch? All right, let's see what the output is. How does YouTube know which videos which? Is YouTube a string of the URL example? Video. Yeah, okay. Accepts this ID, but that doesn't. That does not address our existing schema for video IDs. What's up, guys? Building agents. What's up, guys? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live. I am currently streaming my agent buildouts. So if you guys want to join, here is the link to the live. I'm going to send this to myself. So that y'all can join. So we are going back to the architecture. So links URL. Live YouTube agent build. Live YouTube agent build. Live agent builds. Done. Boom. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the live. Building live AI agents. And today we are working on YouTube. So appreciate your support. Every YouTube video has a unique YouTube ID. So yeah, okay. So you're right. Content video already has YouTube ID from the. I propose it again, which would fail or create a conflict. Let me see what's already in the schema. It's the only addition needed. If you guys want in and you guys want to watch this, then I am. There is the link. Welcome again. Link to join the stream so you can see what I'm actually working on is in the chat or down below. So click the link. So back to the architecture. So every YouTube video has a unique video ID, a string in the URL after, for example, YouTube. The ID is returned by the YouTube Data API. When you upload the video, it is what is stored in Content Videos YouTube ID when the pipeline publishes. Yeah, okay, we've already been over that. So Claude is telling me I'm right, which means I don't trust it. This is so the only column missing for the eval pipeline is published at. Run this in Supabase. So welcome. Okay, thanks, Sarah. for letting me know. How about now? Should be good. Let me double check and make sure that the Bluetooth is. Yeah, okay. Good. We should be good now. Hey everybody. So, Jesus. Pause due to poor connection. We're in shambles. Should be good now. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. So we are building live agents. Gabby, let's go. Let me know. Mi amor, me cuenta si me puedes escuchar bien. So today on the live, we are doing live agent builds. Link to see what we're actually working on is below. So feel free to click that, join in, and join in the fun for what we're actually building. So you're right, content videos, YouTube video ID is a column from the original schema build. I propose adding it again. Okay. Published at timestamp. So YouTube video ID and matching the video ID to the script ID is actually a bit of a problem. Like this is kind of a gap for us to solve to make this, to be able to create an agent loop where the system can get smarter and smarter. Content videos, everything else already exists. The thumbnail, evals, table references, content as the foreign keys and reads as YouTube ID, their query time. Now I'll write the thumbnail generations, thumbnail evals, proceed. So once it builds these things out, now we're going to add those tables into our fancy spreadsheets or backend inside of Supabase. And then updated schema. Yeah, okay. So 14 days. All right. Now we're going back to the original agent debate because we want to get the prompts. Separate Claude API call before Pixels ID. Sam, welcome. Everyone, please join the stream below for the agent build out in case you want to follow. Follow along. Pin. There we go. Pause due to poor connection. Should be working now, but all right. So, yeah, going back to where we were, build order today, this week. This is part of the problem with Instagram. Is that I have so many app blockers on it that even just getting access to it. There we go. Gonna end now. Cool. So back to the stream, ladies and gentlemen. Build order today. Run the SQL. Add get the field ID. Add the blah, blah, blah. Update the thumbnail. JS to architect. Save full record this week. Yeah, I don't see why we can't do all that today. This is how much I have my Claude focused on focus. He thinks this gives you, okay. Let's spot check this so it doesn't screw everything up in our Supabase or fancy spreadsheets. I don't know why we need the local path, but I guess we need it. But I mean, we're running the agents locally, but if we want to get this, if we want to build this into the cloud so that it's not just dependent on us and our machine, then that'll be a problem. But drive URL, pixel, but that's a problem for another day. Alter table, content generations. Okay. Enable row level security. Yeah, we want that. We definitely want security. Index table if doesn't exist. Create index if not exists. Create index if not exists. Create table if not exists. YouTube thumbnail ID, generation ID. Yeah, we want the views, eval type. What's the logic here? What is the decision logic here, Claude? I didn't mean to do all caps, but I also already got started, so I'm not gonna change it just for correct formatting. It's okay if Claude thinks that we're yelling. Just don't kill me, Skynet. That's all I ask. It's time. Yeah, okay. Why? Huh. Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense. That's its way of knowing. Yeah, all right. I'm going to go back to. So that's interesting. What that means is that instead of creating multiple columns for the same thing, just because it's a 14-day or 12-day, this is its way to say, okay, it's early versus stable. But I don't know. I don't like that. I would just say call it what it is. I like systems to be immediately obvious. So 72 hours. I'll just call it 3 days and 14 days. So it's the same measuring stick of days instead of hours. Call it what it is instead. So 3 days and 14 days. Rewrite the prompt for Supabase. There we go. So I can just copy that and paste it. But let's go back and see audit the other logic. Unique video ID. Create policy. Create index. So these are all just all the individual columns that we have here. Now I want to see what it's actually saying. So evals, excuse me. I'm not fully convinced that I'm not fully convinced that the column for the initial, I propose adding it again. I guess, why do we need it? Why do we need to connect? I mean, the only way that that has value is that if we're feeding it back to the script. And the truth is that we're not really, the script is going to change. Like the script changes from pre-product, like the pre-production output that the AI has, and then when I'm actually filming it during production. So that's just going to add a shitload of time to producing the thing and building it as opposed to just shipping it. So I'd rather just ship it. So now we go to the editor inside of Supabase. Oh, didn't copy what I wanted it to, but that's on me. So now we run it. Yes. Supabase, we want security always. All right, great. Now we go to our table editor. Thumbnail evals. All right, whatever. I don't love the naming there, but it's also not completely out of control that it's going to create an issue. I'm not sharing Supabase, so it doesn't really matter for the sake of the stream. The only change in the previous version, 3 down. Okay, cool. So here's what we're working on: the content machine for YouTube. I'm going to have another stream, guys, by the way, where we do this for LinkedIn content as well. There. Now I want this in Claude Code so it knows what we're doing. And we have it memory. So this is done. Thumbnail emotion field. Why? As always, guys, motto on this channel is don't do dumb shit. And the easiest way to do things that are dumb is doing things that you don't need to. So get a field ID. When it says field ID, what do you mean? When you say field ID, what do you mean? All right, let's go back to what we're working on. JS to architect. Okay, so the thumbnail, the thumbnail prompt, like 80/20 is going to be like the prompt architecture. 80/20, this is going to be really important, like where it's worth it to spend some real time on this. Okay, interesting. So it's saying the weekly seeder or pull job and make. All right. As opposed to custom coding it, which I guess makes sense. No, it's asking if we want to proceed, and it's just context, dude. Relax. But I told it, I guess it interpreted what I said to start building it and doing things. And without those prompts to do it, you already solved this. No, not really. I mean, the benefit of using Pixels though is that it has a prompt intake where I don't need to have fixed elements. But instead, there should be individual prompts to capture realism and not have the videos be overly AI generated. Claude is still doing its thing. I don't know what it's working on. I told it not to do the thing. Stop. This is just context. They're definitely token maxing. Let's go. Let's go. How many tokens did you spend on this request? 7.8K. I have my prompts do. I spent 8K tokens just telling Claude what to do and not actually doing it. The file was solving the raw problem. This is the Canva. Yeah, okay. Pixels is generative. The prompt is a lever. This is a great thing about Pixels. Need to get an affiliate link. Um, video type, our video type, industry title, thumbnail prompt. Yeah, this is generative. The prompt is what prevents the AI slop look. Not a fixed expression. Well crafted scene to tell Pixels what to generate something that looks like a real moment. Not really. That's not 100% what we want to do, but okay. So now that we've built our back end, now we need to build out the front end. So video type. Tell me what to do, Claude. So I stop thinking for myself. The differences between a scene direction versus style keywords. Set the thumbnail prompt architecture. Yeah, okay. So what do we want this to do? I think is the first question. Where number one, we want the prompt to take the video. Now we also want to go into ClickUp. And I'm not going to share the ClickUp instance because you can see our instance ID in the URL. there's just too much important data in there for me to put on the stream. So, okay. So we really want to tell question of requirements again. We don't need to do that, but what we need to do take the inputs, take the following inputs. Number one is I want the prompt to take the following inputs. Default industry. Industry field from ClickUp. Yeah, I want the prompt to take the following inputs. Industry field from ClickUp. We also want just like a raw intake, like raw prompt applied each time. Create realistic photos. And what I mean by that is this. Studio lighting. I guess we want natural lighting. Natural light. 35mm lens. Hyper realistic. Because if you don't have these, then it's gonna vary a lot. Natural pores. Do we want glowing? I don't think so. Natural pores. What? Not index, but industry. Field from ClickUp. And it's really the architecture that we're building here, the prompt architecture, because if you don't have multiple prompts, then you're not going to get for 2 to 3 calls. Take the following inputs. To determine URL, which brings up another interesting question, which is how does it determine what thumbnails to use? Like, because that's the benefit of Pixel's URL or Pixel's API is that you can use you can use the exact thumbnails that you want. But then how do we determine what is the thumbnail input? This is a good question. Context for, because the thumbnails that we want is one. We want them to be the top performing templates from the channel. Just thinking out loud, we could have 5 different like defined inputs, and then it's just random. This for expert debate. Stress test this hypothesis. I'm trying to answer the question of how we're feeding specific thumbnails into the channel. Constraint. I don't want to have the same thumbnail look every time. I don't want to create a massive back end of thumbnail URLs. Temperature might be the answer to the question. I'm just coming back to that. Too much random thumbnails. I also don't want the same thumbnail every time. We want the prompt architecture for 2 to 3 calls to take the following inputs: industry field. And click up to determine thumbnail emotion. It would be good to cap this at 5 URLs per video style. Yeah. Yes. All right, we're going to run the stream for another 5 minutes, and then I'm going to grab lunch. A trigger library. Yeah, interesting. But the engineering, yeah. Thank you. You said 2 to 3 calls. Call 1 needs to decide which emotional trigger applies to the video. Call 2 needs to write the stream description. Call 3 is optional. Let's validate the prompt before it goes to Pixel. But the problem... All right. Gap 1. From round 1. Maybe it answers this. I don't see how that aligns with the strategy of trend jacking or trend niche bending. Because what we want to do with the thumbnails is we want to take what's already working. Like, why reinvent the wheel? So let me see here. Call 1. Yeah, low temperature logic deterministic classification, which just means that this is fixed. Scene architecture. All right. Random selection from 5 URLs produces random aesthetic. This selection needs to be Video 1 for case study breakdown. Use this reference. I think I need to rerun this debate. It's like completely, let's see, quickly spot check round 3. No, yeah, this is how it's trying to solve that. This is not what we want. This is an example of exactly what we don't want, because this is going to produce a lot of slop. One constraint I did not add was making sure that we are trend jacking from existing channels and existing styles, which our audience of 30 to 55-year-old B2B founders is already watching. Rerun the debate with this context. That's on me. Awesome, guys. Well, we're coming up on 90 minutes here. So we're going to continue working on this. I'll probably be back in 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes after I grab some lunch.